Hello, my Astro family. This is Lada from astrolada.com here with your present for 2020. As I promised, we're doing an astrology marathon a whole week from the 9th till the 15th of December, where each day an exceptional astrologer will share with you some of the most prominent astrological influences for the world or personally as well in 2020. And we're kicking off this marathon today with one of my most favorite astrologers, also one of your most favorite astrologers. He's done only a few videos for Astrolada channel, and people adore him. He's so knowledgeable, so deep and profound, yet so humble. Hello, Darren.
Hi, Lada. How are you?
I'm very excited. You're the first one with your positive energy to kickstart this marathon. I just love your kind heart and soul and your really, really amazing astrology knowledge. So, Darren, what are we talking about today?
Well, today we're going to talk about the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn that's approaching pretty soon in the year 2020. And one of the first things that you want to do if you want to get an idea on what the future will be like with this conjunction is to really, really think about what the planets mean, the basic foundational meanings of Jupiter and Pluto. So Jupiter is about generosity, it's about growth and blessings, and it expands whatever it touches. So when you analyze the conjunctions, you want to think about what the actions that the planets do. So Jupiter expands whatever it touches, and then with Pluto, it could destroy and rebuild something or transform something. It's a purging, detoxifying energy. So Jupiter is going to expand or exaggerate the qualities of Pluto.
Oh my God, Pluto is so intense.
Yeah. And that's the best term to use because those two energies together, it's exaggerating on intensity. And another way to look at conjunctions, instead of trying to, be so obsessed about the future, the best approach is to really look at history to get an idea on what can happen. And just researching the dynamics between Pluto and Jupiter, I notice it does create a dynamic of wealth.
It's called the millionaire conjunction.
Right. That's true. That's so true. And it's wealth from things that are hidden beneath the surface, whether it's from inheritance or from banks or loans or financial housing, money that you do not see. That's why it's called hidden wealth. And even though Jupiter is debilitated in Capricorn, Jupiter is still a planet of blessings. Mm-hmm. So there could be some kind of blessing through some form of tragedy, because Pluto deals with crisis, taboos, death. Oh. And I chose this conjunction because I can relate to it because I have a Jupiter-Pluto opposition in my chart.
Wow.
Yeah, it's Sun, Jupiter conjuncting each other with a Pluto opposition, and there has been inheritance involved regarding land and property.
I know, you're the money man.
Yeah, right.
Sun, Jupiter,
and Taurus.
Fun astrology, baby.
Yes. And Jupiter is the 8th lord, too.
Ooh.
Yeah, so anything regarding inheritance or anything 8th house related is a big part of my life because it's the ascendant lord as well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And so it means that with this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, people can suddenly come into huge amounts of money that were invisible to them before.
Exactly.
Sources that they did not know existed or that they were not available to them. And it's not always money either. It can be like an emotional resources that you never knew you have that.
Yeah, because Jupiter is a significator of wealth, so it doesn't always have to be literal or tangible. It could be wealth in a different sense, whether it's psychological, especially with Pluto there, it'll definitely be something psychological or emotional. And Saturn is going to be a part of this conjunction. And one interesting thing about Saturn, even though Saturn is a planet of limitations and restrictions and boundaries, Saturn is also a solidifying energy where it makes it concrete, tangible, where you could feel it, touch it. And I want to glance at my notes really quickly because there's so many things I can say about this conjunction. And another thing that I've noticed is that it does cause extreme magnifying energy or intense enlargement. And what I mean by that is I came across an article where there's the Jupiter-Pluto dynamic, any outer planets with the traditional planets, you'll notice certain inventions, especially with Uranus. But even though we're talking about Jupiter, but Uranus is the main planet with inventions, right? But with Jupiter and Pluto, I noticed there have been things where it creates a magnifying energy, like telescopes inventions have been made, like microscopes, or honing in on things like things that you can't see with the naked eye, like germs or atoms, molecules, things like that.
The quantum as well. That
Mm-hmm.
because Pluto
Yeah,
rules the quantum, the invisible, the microcosmos, and the micro and the macro. It's like that.
right.
So you
And
think there'll be like big advancement in this kind of molecular quantum?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like, and just thinking about because when you look at a conjunction or a stellium, I kind of look at the planet that's the strongest, which is going to be Saturn, because Capricorn is Saturn ruled. So the planets kind of have to submit to Saturn's rules and regulations, which is the planet of rules and regulations, right? So it probably would be something that is really, we'll probably be gaining a lot more knowledge of ancient things or very, very old school things. Or it can be very literal, like being more, maybe there'll be some discovery of dinosaur bones or something like that.
Ooh,
Something really archaic and ancient and old.
ooh, half human, half dinosaur.
Right.
Oh, but that's fascinating. So we should expect in sciences, because
Mhm,
Saturn rules the sciences, the hardcore facts, and something
mhm,
like Earth, Pluto, that's old and ancient, that brings us a lot of knowledge. Jupiter, a lot of clarity
mhm.
about something. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
excited. And ancient knowledge of any sort.
Ancient knowledge, yeah. And and we're kind of slowly approaching that anyway. Like I've noticed people are starting to, even with astrology, people are starting to lean towards more of the ancient aspect of astrology. Because most people, they dive into the modern side of it, but people are even stepping into the rules and regulations of ancient astrology, or even focusing on the traditional ruling planets as opposed to the modern ruling planets.
Mhm.
There's
There's
this
been a
thing,
shift.
it's been a shift. Yeah, even for me.
The last Pluto Jupiter conjunction, it was again in Capricorn, wasn't it? At kind of 0 degrees in Capricorn.
0 degrees.
So
And
this trend started around that time, 13 years ago. Jupiter Pluto repeats every 13 years. And
mhm,
it seems that this trend is going to continue for another 13 years.
yeah, yep, exactly. And even back then, that was late 2007 and early 2008. And that's when there was failed bankruptcy, the end of investment banking. So big banks were loaning money for a housing property.
Mhm.
People who could not afford to pay for housing. And that's when the banks collapsed. And that's when Barack Obama became president later on the year and did a bailout, giving money to banks from the federal government, to keep the banks from going under. And another thing, when I analyze conjunctions, not all the time, this is not a rule that I always follow, but it can be useful. When you look at two planets conjoined together think about what they rule as well, like sign-wise. So like, what's a good example? A good example would be like Moon Mercury conjunction, like I have, can give similar effects to somebody with Mercury in Cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like Saturn and Gemini could be similar to Mercury and Capricorn. So I wasn't just looking at Jupiter Pluto conjunctions, I was also looking at the time when Pluto was in Sagittarius.
Ah.
Yeah. So it can get similar results to Pluto and Sagittarius. So one of the main things that stands out to me when I think about Pluto and Sagittarius was 9/11, because Pluto can, can represent the darker side of ourselves, or having a twisted, darker belief system, because Sagittarius and Jupiter is all about your belief system, your morals, your ethics, your values, your religious beliefs. And with Pluto there, it's more darker, it's a little bit more twisted, especially if there's personal planets there. Or you could use religion as a manipulation tactic, depending on the person's chart.
Exactly. So it is, I've noticed when Pluto Jupiter conjoin, they can be religious extremism. And people get bigoted to the extreme. Jupiter beliefs, Pluto bigoted, extreme, black or white. So we have to be careful with that. Thank you for reminding us. That's a good
Yeah. So just remember that opposition with Pluto and Sagittarius and Saturn and Gemini. This is where I find astrology so fascinating, because it's not consistently literal, but sometimes it can be very literal and bizarre, because Saturn rules buildings and structure. And it was in Gemini. Gemini rules twins, Saturn is buildings, that opposition, that polarity. There's a tug of war with Pluto and Sagittarius and Saturn and Gemini, and that's when 9/11 happened with the terrorist attack.
For religious reasons. People say it's the government who did it, but again, the symbology or whatever, it was religious extremism and clash of beliefs. But yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, you're making some scary predictions.
Yeah, because world predictions is not my expertise, but I do like to research for fun, for personal reasons. But this is my first time doing a world events prediction, I guess you could call it. But, I'm just more speculating on what's to come by looking at the history of similar things happening. And even during that time in 2007, when Jupiter and Pluto were conjoined together in the late degrees, Jupiter and Pluto in the last degrees of Sagittarius, that's when, what is that thing called? The NASA space probe was traveling to see photos and images of Pluto, and it was getting gravitational support from Jupiter.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So I just thought that was
collaborated, Pluto and Jupiter.
Yeah, so I thought that was so fascinating. Like, wow, like it's so, astrology can be so literal sometimes. I just think it's really amazing. And they timed this during the time when Jupiter and Pluto were together in the early 90s, when it was in Scorpio. So that's when they realized that, Jupiter could actually, support that.
That's when they invented the concept of they started planning it at times.
Yes. Yeah, so just looking at that, like, I'm not saying that that's going to happen, because I don't study world events often, but it's very possible based on that. So I feel like that's the best approach. Even the discovery of Pluto itself, in 1894, I wrote it down somewhere. In 1894, let me see, 1894, Jupiter and Pluto was in Gemini. There was a stellium in Gemini. Sun, Mercury, Neptune. Neptune rules films and images. And so that's when the discovery, they didn't say Pluto, it's the discovery of another planet. They call it trans-Neptunian. Something beyond that. And then it got, the person, I forget his name, was researching this particular planet. And then it got popularized, or it became known publicly to the public world in 1930.
Yeah.
And that's when the little girl named the planet Pluto.
Well, how correct.
Yeah,
Never by
I,
chance. I think planets are given names with divine intervention somehow. It's an
yeah,
inspiration
I
that.
think so too. Yeah, and the girl, she has a Jupiter Pluto conjunction as well, which I also thought was amazing.
Oh wow. Jupiter illuminates, brings light to and knowledge
Yeah.
about something. So she was channeling the
Hmm.
channeling the Pluto's energy.
Yeah. So yeah, it can Pluto can bring out, you know, the darker side of ourselves, and Jupiter can bring knowledge to that. And by it being in Capricorn, which is a hard working, tenacious, critical, practical zodiac sign, is very, very status hungry, and it's all about ranking. So the belief system can be a little bit more limited, you know, especially with religious, spiritual attributes. There's limitations on that. And that's why it's considered it's debilitation. And debilitation to me, with any planet, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad or good thing. It just means that the planet is out of sync with its natural abilities. Like with any planet, like Venus in Aries, you know, Aries is a masculine sign, so it's not the archetype of a female because Venus represents females, women. So somebody with Venus in Aries would be a little bit more impulsive with relationships, like a woman going after a man instead of a man going after a woman.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what,
That's
right, right. So it doesn't mean that it's
bad.
bad, you know, it just means that it's not fitting this stereotype of what the planet is supposed to do.
Mhm.
Or like instead of a princess, you probably would get Angelina Jolie from Tomb Raider or something like that. You know what I mean?
She's got Venus in no, Venus in Cancer, sorry.
She has Venus in Cancer, but she has tons of Aries, stellium in Aries. But yeah, so it's the same thing with Jupiter. It's just the belief system become more old school, more limited, more, especially with Saturn there, it's going to be very, very, you know,
Conservative.
just conservatism. Yeah,
Yeah.
not so liberal. And maybe just black and white and putting up boundaries on when anything related to cultures, what your religious beliefs are, just kind of not being so open-minded when it comes to understanding one's opinions about their spiritual beliefs or whatever, or cultural beliefs.
What about, do you think racism can be an issue?
Yeah, I think, you know what I think with that? I think racism could be an issue, number one. Number two, I do think, because Jupiter is knowledge regardless of where it is, I think it'll bring a lot of awareness to things that are prejudiced, especially in the government, especially people who are in hierarchical positions.
Mm.
So, and I think Jupiter Pluto conjunction can actually be a little bit similar to Jupiter and Scorpio, where there was expansion and knowledge of taboo sexual things going on. So it'll be more on the governmental side, or you know, whatever is going on in our country or whatever. But I think there'll be more exposure when it comes to criminal behavior, or
Mhm.
people who are doing uh, I guess you could say secrets will be exposed from the government.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
deep government, as they call it as well.
Yeah,
Some
the
of
deep
those.
government, a lot of criminal behavior will be exposed. And it, with Saturn being there, I think it'll be more exposure of things that people have done years ago, like very old things that happened decades ago. And I feel like we're already getting a taste of that with Saturn, Pluto, and K2 being together. You know, with Saturn and K2 being together, K2 moves backwards, so the planets move forward, and Jupiter is going to replace K2 and almost like replace the qualities of K2, where we're, you know, getting away from those kind of things. Then Jupiter is going to bring awareness instead of turning a blind eye.
Yes, because
Yeah.
Kate is like to cover up, to hide.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
or releasing, ignoring, that kind of thing. It's more of a downward introverted energy. And Jupiter is going to expand the qualities of the dynamic between Saturn and Pluto.
Mm,
Jupiter is going to make us know what that is, because it's a hard conjunction to analyze. Because
yeah.
Saturn is a restricting, withholding energy. It's a suppressing energy too.
Yes. And you
Yeah,
said it's a lot about stuff because Saturn and Capricorn are involved.
yeah,
And I think that it will be as well, uh, there will be quite visible
hmm
punishment for that because Saturn does not let you slip away with,
exactly.
but
Right.
it's yeah, it's already starting to happen
hmm
with Pluto and Saturn. Sorry, Pluto and Saturn were 2019 together, not fully,
hmm
but they were together. So this will happen with Epstein, Prince Andrew, things that happened like 20 years ago when they
Yeah.
were probably thinking, oh, she's 17, that's not bad, she looks like a woman. It was not
hmm
a taboo back then, but now it is becoming. This is fascinating what you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah. And Jupiter rules, even though it's debilitated, it rules morals, ethics, and the law, righteousness. It brings a sense of ethics to Saturn. Because even though Saturn is about rules and regulations, sometimes rules and regulations are not always good.
Mhm.
You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Like
They-
sometimes,
to suppress, sometimes they're there.
yeah, suppressing energy is not always good. So I do think Jupiter could help as far as ethics and morals coming involved. As
Mm.
far as rules and regulations go, especially, if something regarding your job or something that is not right, especially with Pluto there, it's probably rules that are a bit more twisted and dark. Like during slavery times, there was a lot of Saturn, Pluto. Yeah, a lot of Saturn, Pluto stuff with Mars there. And then we're going to have Mars going through there. So I think that's going to be really intense.
This whole year is
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be, let me see. I wrote the dates for that too. So yeah, March 21st, Mars will be a part of that conjunction.
wow.
And the exact conjunction will be April 4th to April 5th, the exact conjunction between Jupiter and Pluto. And then June 29th to June 30th, there'll be an exacting conjunction in retrograde. So it'll come back to the same degree. So it'll be a repeat of something, the
Hmm.
Jupiter Pluto dynamic. And then, yeah, it's going to be trailing, they're going to be together for a long time. And throughout the summer, Mars will square that. That's probably the one part of the year that I'll be nervous about. Mars square, like, it's like nothing but malefic planets. It's Mars square retrograde to Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter. And that could sometimes bring power control issues and abuse, whether it's psychological, emotional, or physical,
On personal level and collective.
on a personal level and a collective level.
Yeah, that's when we have to be very careful. It's squaring all my Aries planets, the Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars, all of them. Actually, Mars
Oh my
passed
God.
3 times over them while squaring Pluto, so Uranus, Pluto, Jupiter. And I'm like, I
hmm
warned my husband and I said, please bear with me.
Yeah.
I hope
And
I survive it, but it's
yeah. So it will cause a huge tug of war energy or harsh punishment for any actions that anybody takes. In a way, it may be a good thing, especially for criminals or, people who are um, maybe um, some repercussions for sexual behavior,
Mhm,
inappropriate sexual behavior.
mhm.
So it's a catch-22. It'll be great for people who are like child molesters or people who abuse somebody 30, 50 years ago or something like that. But it can be very tough when it's punishment for small reasons, which is why Saturn is considered exalted. Saturn is considered exalted in Libra because the punishment is always
Fair.
fair and justice. But
Mhm.
with Capricorn, it's a little bit cold and stagnant. And then with Pluto there, it could Pluto Pluto and Jupiter being there, the belief system could be about they may have a belief system of punishment or even maybe killing, that could be a belief system. Like even in ancient times, like the punishment was to cut off people's heads. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen now, but there could be a little darker, twisted belief system on what punishment and repercussions should be.
There'll be definitely more cruelty next year.
Yeah, I
Those.
think, yeah.
And at the same time, it will bring a lot of awareness about our darker side and unregenerated side, because Jupiter is awareness, Pluto is that darker side. Saturn and Mars, they're all those unregenerated sides of us that we create the most troubles with, and Jupiter is kind of touching on all of them, and it's going to be a massive year. On a personal level, what would you warn people or tell them to look for?
Oh, on a personal level, should I go through the 12 signs?
If you want, you can say like a sentence to each one.
Yeah, I never done that before because transits are, kind of lightweight sometimes.
Yeah.
And everybody's chart is so different, because their personal planets change things and the timing techniques, like some things may not even be activated with dashas, perfections, yeah, it's just so many things. Like, that's why some people will feel the transit so intensely, and then another person with the same ascendant, they may not feel it at all, But I'll be general with the signs. So my first time doing this. So Aries would be the 10th house. So it could be knowledge and awareness of some kind of maybe like you come across an authoritative figure or a new boss that's like really harsh and cruel, or has this twisted belief system on what rules and regulations are, or too much rules and regulations. Because Jupiter expands, and Jupiter and Saturn is a restricting energy, a limiting energy, and Jupiter will expand the qualities of Saturn. So it's like, the work could be overwhelming. It was overwhelming of responsibilities. And then when Mars makes its conjunctions and squares, that Aries person will be just exhausted, Or there could be repercussions for their temper too, because Mars will go in their first house. So they could be provoked to be angry, and there could be repercussions for exhibiting that anger.
From authority figures.
From an authoritative figure, cracking the whip on them.
If you're your own boss.
If you're on your own boss, then
kicking your own ass a lot.
Yeah, then you probably beat yourself up, or maybe because it'll be Mars will be retrograde too, so you may want to be careful how you express your anger too, because then you may regret it, or you made a mistake, or you may have snapped at an inappropriate time and you shouldn't have.
That's especially in the second part of the year. After August to the end of the year, I would say Mars is
Aries
has to be careful around that time. But there's huge changes for Aries in career. And like new cycles, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto are starting there. So this is the big focus for Aries, I think, in that area. This
it'll be in the fall mostly. And then Jupiter and Pluto will conjunct each other again in November 11th to the 12th. Yeah. And then Taurus, so that's the 9th house. So this could be related to, hopefully there's no Taurus rising people suing anybody, because the 9th house could represent the law. It could be repercussions for the law. With Mars in the 12th house, there could be repercussions for any behaviors that you do behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And you can literally get in trouble with the law.
Wow.
Yeah. And I know somebody, a Taurus rising person, who has a debilitated Saturn in the 12th, and the Saturn square really messed this person up, and they went to jail for speeding, and it was like not even that big of a deal. It was like 80, the person was driving 80 miles an hour on the freeway, and they got a ticket, and then the person got combative and they ended up going to jail.
Oh my God, Saturn in Aries he has.
Yeah, he has Saturn in
So
Aries.
it's like Aries punishes, when Saturn is in Aries, you punish very harshly and unfairly. That's why it's debilitated there. And
Yeah.
12th house prison in the sign of Aries, speeding and getting angry. So that's,
Yep.
oh,
Yep.
wow. Poor guy.
Yeah, I know, right?
But
And
also I think Taurus, their belief systems will be changing in a big way. Something.
I think the belief system will be changing in a way too. Probably discovering whatever their philosophical religious attributes are, there could be something more. With Pluto, there could be more something related to arcane subjects or something that's real old school, or
Yeah, that's
something.
been dead and it's being revived now, type of.
Yeah, it's something that is dead and reviving, because Pluto is about reviving things that are dead and decaying, especially with Saturn there, old rotten things, and Pluto represents things that are rotten and rising above to the surface, things that are beneath the surface and rising above it. That's Pluto. That's the dynamics of Pluto.
Fun, fun, fun.
Right. And then with Gemini, there could be some Gemini rising people, probably something related to taxes or inheritance, some, there could be repercussions regarding that too, or something to do with your psychological beliefs or psychological processes could be actually difficult and transforming. And Saturn also rules consistency in repeating something, and Jupiter is probably bringing knowledge and awareness of your psychological problems or things of that nature. And if they happen to be studying astrology, they may start to lean towards more of the ancient aspect of astrology.
And gain very deep understanding with Jupiter.
Mm-hmm.
That's very great for anyone who is psychology, astrology, tarot, the occult.
Mm-hmm.
Researchers and scientists, it's very eighth house digging. So that
Yeah.
can be one area where this planets manifest quite well, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Even very old techniques that popular astrologers don't publicly use outwardly, or maybe people will start doing that, like old techniques that is not necessarily popular. It'll start to be popular in the year 2020. I'm already getting a taste of it now, and Jupiter is barely at 1 degree, 0 degrees. It's like it's already hitting me. It's already hitting me with these very old astrology books, very old techniques that do work. And that's the one thing I do like about Saturn. It always makes things, again, tangible, manifesting something into reality.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one thing I do like about Saturn.
Yeah, it's not just theory. We've had those. But they've been mostly theoretical. Very few astrologers have been using. We talked about a certain
Mm-hmm.
old styles that you're using now and you're finding fascinating. I hope you'll present them to our viewers. And
Oh,
there, but it's just so hard to calculate. It hasn't been
yeah.
really accessible to people. I think that's what's going to be happening in 2020. They'll make those old ways, traditional, much more accessible for
Mm-hmm.
self-knowledge astrology.
Yeah, and even some of the old techniques that I'm using, it's hard for me to use it because they're on softwares that are not compatible with Mac computers, which is what I have, they're only for Windows, or they're on softwares that are in a different language. So I get exhausted constantly going googletranslate.com, so it becomes exhausting. But then when I have the patience, I'm like, oh my God, it works, So it's fascinating,
These techniques were used on kings and they don't bullshit around if you don't predict for them correctly.
Yeah, then there's that. Yeah, so then Saturn makes you be very, very precise and critical, and doing things perfectly. And so yeah, that's what Saturn does.
Will Gemini have a bit of a better sex life? Pluto, Jupiter conjunction in the eighth. I
There
think some of
probably
them
will
can
be.
go down into the deep or some tantric shit.
if there's a Gemini rising person who is having sexual problems, they may have to see a sexologist. And Saturn also can make you do things on a repetitive level because it represents consistency, repeating things. And another interesting thing about Saturn, I noticed it can create an addictive energy too. And the reason why that is because wherever Saturn is in your chart, it will make you feel a sense of lack or not enough. So you constantly go after that all the time. It could play out in two different ways. Either you get exhausted and you just give up, or it can make you constantly go after that very thing over and over and over again until you get it. Like when I see people, even celebrities who have Saturn in the second house, Saturn in the 11th house, those people are extremely wealthy, but they're very frugal too, because they have that fear and anxiety of not having it or losing it. So if you have Saturn in the second house or 11th house or the 8th house, any of the wealth houses, you're not doomed. You know, you may have more than you're giving yourself credit for. Or any same thing with the aspects. If you have Saturn Venus, you may not feel pretty enough. Or if you have Saturn Mercury, you may not feel you're smart enough. Or you find fault in the words that you say, or you try to perfect the words that you say, or you beat yourself up for saying something that you think is stupid. You may not have said anything stupid, but you think that it's stupid, where everybody else thinks it's great. Like, oh my God, you're so smart. And you're like, no, I made a mistake. I found a flaw.
Oh no, I have this one, so I always
Right.
rehearse what I said, and I'm like, I hate watching my videos to see what I said. It's like
yeah.
about my voice, how I express. So it is. But anyway, let's not get too.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Cancer.
What's the next one? Cancer. Okay. Cancer, so it could be something with relationships. So if you're having problems in relationships, you know, it could be something. It depends if you're single or if you are in a relationship. If you are single and maybe you're trying to find a man, you just don't understand why. It could be related to some mistakes that you have been making for decades. Like, oh, why am I single? Why am I single? And then Jupiter will bring awareness to all of the mistakes that you have made for years, and you didn't realize it until Jupiter came, you know, and it's like, oh wow, like I just realized I've been doing the same thing over and over and over again. You know, it could be something like that. And or because Pluto can represent abuse. Not every Cancer rising person is going through abuse. I'm not saying that, but you know, maybe you could be in denial about something about your relationship, you know, or some form of abuse, whether it's emotional or physical, and you blocked it out or something like that, especially the Neptune Capricorn generation. Maybe you lie to yourself, you just, because Neptune does rule deception, or it blocks out reality that it cannot handle, things like that. So Jupiter will bring knowledge and awareness to old mistakes that you have made regarding relationships or business.
Yes.
Maybe you keep collaborating with the wrong person. Could be something like that. And the next one, Leo. Okay, that's me. Yeah. Oh, this will be easy because I'm already going through it. Major health issues. Yeah, so it's just like for me on a personal level, it's because my solar return is a Capricorn rising solar return, but it's like everything, it can be related to awareness to mistakes that you have made regarding your health. You know, so like for me, for example, I have been making mistakes regarding my teeth because Saturn rules the bones, it rules teeth. So I have to get surgery and get my teeth pulled because I've been ignoring it, because I've been kind of nervous and scared about this process of getting my teeth yanked out. So I do have to deal with that on a personal level. I'm just using myself as an example. For somebody else, it could be something different. But it can be.
All of your teeth?
No, 4 teeth.
Oh,
for it.
okay.
No, not all of my teeth. I'm not going to be gummy, but no, but I do have to get Invisalign braces. So I have to get a lot of work done on my teeth, and it's been scaring me. You know, I've been avoiding this for years, for years. So
Now it's
now,
gonna be okay though. Jupiter is there, everything will be fine.
yeah. So I purposely chose my surgery date, and I'm like, I'm gonna wait till Jupiter gets there.
Oh,
So yeah, there's gonna be blessings behind it, and on my personal chart, there's trines everywhere. So I'm okay. I'm fine with it. So
well,
yeah,
like a th.
yeah. So it may be a delay with me like talking, like difficulty with giving readings for the first couple of days, but then I'll get back on track.
Oh yeah, talking about readings.
Right.
Darren is making a 2020 promotion to the 1st of January, 30 minutes reading. It's discounted 40%, so it's only $100 down from 180. So if
Hmm.
you like Darren's style, I think people love his style of prediction, and he uses so many ancient techniques. You can check the 40% discount underneath. Carry on. So
Okay.
let's go to maybe also work. Is there any issues with work?
Yeah, something with work, service, employees. If you have your own business, it could be something related to the employees that you have or the employees that you work with, or something regarding enemies or debt.
Mm.
You know, maybe there could be a little bit of a scare tactic, like, oh, you owe this amount of money for whatever. Same thing with Gemini too. If you want to go back to Gemini, it could be something related to taxes. You know, it could be something where you owe a lot of money to the government. But back to Leo, could be something related to any form of debt that you have to take care of. Debt, health, work, service, enemies, all of those things.
Mm.
And the next one, Virgo, is interesting. Could be something related to kids, fertility issues. Again, Gemini rising, same thing. Anything related to fertility, sorry. But for Virgo rising, could be something related to kids, trying to have a child. So maybe there's been difficulty regarding children, something like that. Jupiter is blessing, so you could possibly, try. I would say this is a try season. I'm not saying you're going to have a job, but I'm just saying this will be a great season to try. Especially now, before Jupiter starts having these harsh aspects to Mars and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Before the
yeah,
spring.
yes. But then you want to time it to when you give birth. But anyways,
And love life. Would you consider fifth house love life?
yeah, I consider love life. I consider it education, and I do use the house-to-house concept, the bhava bhavam. I find that to be extremely fascinating.
Derivative houses.
Derivative houses, exactly. I find it, and you'll start to realize why the houses mean what they mean, too.
Yes.
Like,
What
like
else does it mean then? The
the
fifth.
fifth house. Here's a good example. The fifth house represents the death of your career.
Yes. 8 from 10.
Eighth from the 10th. And
So you mean that if you decide to be creative and do something creative, that's the end of your social status and career? Because fifth house
yes.
is also creativity to perform, and
Mm-hmm.
house is social respectability. So the moment you decide to go creative, that's
Mm-hmm.
career.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your hierarchical career or something like that, but it doesn't
Yeah.
mean be successful with fifth house matters.
Yeah. And that's why I represent speculative businesses too, because it's a risk-taking business.
Yeah.
Because anything eighth house related is always risky, and not knowing, because it does represent inconsistent income, residual income. That's why fifth house is speculative business, because it's the transformations and the upheavals of your reputation, your status, and your career. That
Mm.
is the fifth house representation.
So some of Virgos might be going exactly through that.
Mm-hmm.
Death of a career, maybe inklings of some new risky speculative
Mm-hmm.
ideas as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And the next one, Libra. So that could be anything related to fourth house related topics. It could be real estate, property, land, home, family, anybody that you live with, relatives, motherhood, or any maternal figure. So that could be father too sometimes. I don't want to scare Libra rising. I get a lot of Libra rising people who are terrified of this conjunction because I even hesitate saying this, but I have Libra rising people who've experienced losing a parent.
It's the conjunction Saturn and Saturn and Pluto is happening on the cusp of my husband's fourth house. He's Libra, right?
Oh, yeah, and then natally as a
Live with
Mars.
his mom. She's very healthy-ish, but you never know.
Mhm. Yeah. So again, I don't want to. Not everything that we say is going to be literal because a person's chart is too specific, and the houses represent a million different things, especially if you have the above ones memorized, which I do. Because when Saturn went through my fourth house, that's when my father passed away because the fourth house is also the house of father's death. And
Oh,
Saturn brings anything into reality. So death of property, I had to sell his property. You know, family dynamics were limited at that time. That was difficult. And I'm kind of glad I didn't know about astrology then. I found out about astrology right after that. And I'm like, God, no wonder I'm going through this shit.
Jupiter is going there as well. Jupiter is
Yeah.
there, so
And
there'll be some help with for Libra.
yeah, there'll be blessings behind that. You know, there could be something good coming out of this too, despite all the other malefic planets beating up Jupiter. So it could be something related to health, land, or even wealth from land. Like if you're selling your home, like maybe you built equity from your home, you
Oh,
know?
yes, that's a good
Yeah.
example. Good.
And I can attest to that because I have this natally with the opposition. So you definitely can, if you happen to own a home, Libra rising people, you can, maybe you start to realize the pricing of your home, or if you have equity in the home, or maybe you find out the value of your home. It could be something very simple like that. The value of your home, or something, or maybe knowledge of your heritage or history, things like that.
I think it's also good for renovations of any sorts and
Mm-hmm.
changing places of living. It might be hard with certain responsibilities, but you can find the place that feels right with the Jupiter.
Yeah.
And you can find also a lot of sense of Jupiter Pluto is like hidden resources. Like you said, you can maybe find a pot of gold in your yard, but you can
Yeah.
hidden emotional resources that
Mm-hmm.
or some discoveries about your past and childhood that release you from certain limitations or some
Mm-hmm.
psychological realizations as well about your past and family.
Yeah, about your past, your roots, or it could even be some blessing from a family member from a long time ago. Like let's say, hypothetically speaking, like maybe you had a grandmother that passed away 20 years ago, and then you realized that she left you something you didn't know about it until later, until now. You know, it could be something like that, something very
Your
simple like that.
wedding dress.
Right. Maybe her old wedding dress, and you're like, oh, because Saturn represents tradition too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's true.
Yeah, so this could actually apply to Cancer rising people with the seventh house things, because the seventh house is mother's mother, the maternal side, your
Yeah,
maternal grandmother.
yeah.
So maybe you decide to carry on the tradition, Saturn, for a wedding dress.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, so pay attention to the aspect. Use electional astrology and pick a day. Find out which transits will work best for you if you want to get married in 2020.
Okay. Scorpio.
Scorpio, third house. So that could be anything related to your awareness and knowledge to siblings or anything related to the media world. If you happen to be in a field of business, because third house is definitely related to media, business, commerce, sales. I mean, well, not, yeah, more like marketing field. Or maybe you've been struggling with third house related things like our communication, where there's telephones or computers, or, you know, I know a lot of Scorpio rising people definitely having a hard time with third house related topics with their personal business, with traveling, you know, or some Scorpio rising people have been in car accidents, you know, not to scare anybody, but I've noticed some major car accidents to where they don't even have a car anymore. They, you know, something like that. And Jupiter can actually bring some kind of blessing behind it, or even something really strange like, you know, maybe you get into a car accident, but it's not at your fault. Maybe somebody hits you and you get the insurance money. That could be a Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn dynamic,
Yeah.
where it seems like really crucial at the time, but then there's some kind of blessing behind it. You could be injured or something, but you got money from it, like, you
Oh,
know.
right. Siblings, relatives, teammates.
Hmm.
Social life might have been restricted till now, but now there might be some transformations in your social life. And you might find,
Hmm.
because of this more social isolation that you've been through, maybe not feeling understood or heard, maybe you can
Hmm.
discover some treasure out of that now,
Yeah.
some hidden um, benefits because of this kind of social isolation you've had for a little bit,
Hmm.
communication
Yeah.
problems with relatives and such.
Yeah. And maybe limitations on communication can actually be a good thing in the long run. There
Yeah.
could be something behind it, you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
And
For sure,
then,
yeah. Maybe deeper knowledge or learning or
yeah, you probably were
developing
forced
skills.
to get a better knowledge of something related to technical skills, because third house
Yeah.
is skills and hobbies and stuff like that. So maybe you're forced to learn about something, especially with Jupiter there. You are going to be educated on something, on third house related topics. You know, that's why you're being, you know, restricted to going anywhere, traveling anywhere, communicating with others. You're being forced to learn something, to practice something, doing something skillful, tangible, useful, because Saturn likes to be practical and useful and doing something that makes sense. So something like that.
Oh,
'Cause- so definitely has a lot to do with your intelligence too.
yeah.
And then Sagittarius rising, this Jupiter Pluto Saturn conjunction will be influencing your finances, again, your family dynamics, your support system, anything that supports you, your resources or nutrition or food, things like that. And that is why second house represents family, because I know people get confused with second house and fourth house being family. They both represent family, just on a different level. Second house is more about anybody that supports you. It could even be a friend, because second house can be friends too, because it's under the first house, which is you, so it's supporting you. That's why it mainly represents your support system, like
Mm-hmm.
food, you
Mm-hmm.
know, water, resources, even your, I don't know, your electricity bill or something like that. You know, anything that supports you
Yes, to survive the
to
physical.
survive. Yeah, that's why it's related to nutrition, um, family, friends that do help you and support you. 11th house is friends, but it's more of like superficial friendships or whatever. So I'll talk
Social
about,
network type of thing, yeah.
yeah, like your, um, uh, what is it called? Like your happy hour buddy. You know, that
Yeah.
kind of, that kind of friend, your party friend. But the second house friends is more about the person you can call if you have a flat tire or if you need a place to stay.
Or to borrow money.
To borrow money, mainly money, yeah. That
Wow.
all ties in together. So
Uh,
it could be more blessings from old relatives. And I've seen that happen already, even with Jupiter being at 0 degrees. There could be support system from old relatives, wise relatives, relatives that tell you secrets, because Pluto is secrets, Saturn is old things. So you could be learning things about your family dynamics or learning new ways to support yourself regarding money. And it could be something very old school. Like, I know a Sag rising who has been struggling with finance, and now on the day when Jupiter went into 0 degrees, the person started to do something that they did years ago. The person was a driver. The person has a lot of third house energy anyway, natally, but just reverting back to what they used to do decades ago to make more money, good money, very decent money.
I can give you another example. A friend of two of my best friends, Sagittarius rising, and the moment Jupiter entered into Capricorn, they had financial problems, and they both, one got like a great job and immediately like double salary. The other one discovered something about the past that which actually removed some financial limitations for her. There was certain contract that she had, and something that she discovered removed the limitations of that contract financially, which for her really builds up now on her material state. So you're point on, really point on.
Thank you. Yeah, my mother's a Sag rising too. She has been learning way more about her roots lately. Because I did build something for her, ancestry.com. So I've made a family tree, and I've been, telling her everything that I found out. So she's learning from me. She's indirectly getting knowledge of her roots and her family because of all the things that I have learned and discovered.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's just one small example for Sag rising people. And the next one is Capricorn. It's everything about them. So Jupiter in the first house, there could be knowledge of self, and this could be related to health too. Because Saturn in the first house, I know a lot of Capricorn rising people, they have been having experiences of losing weight or feeling sick. Saturn is a malefic planet at the end of the day. I happen to know a lot of Capricorn rising people who are pregnant, females, of course, because Jupiter, it makes the body bigger, so, and it's a lot of people in my generation having babies anyway. And I noticed that our generation has a lot of stelliums in Capricorn. And with this current stellium in Capricorn, these children are inheriting our Capricorn energy. I noticed. They're inheriting our stuff, our Capricorn junk, so they're getting a lot of it, so there's a lot of people. I just keep coming across people my age who are pregnant, having babies. It's insane. Like all of my high school friends, I'm pregnant, And even getting readings from people, it's like, I'm pregnant,
What do you think? Yeah, I'm waiting for all the planets to leave Capricorn, so I'm not gonna.
So I just
get
find
pregnant
it
now. My child will be superior human being.
right. So I just find that really fascinating,
Oh no, I'm also with a lot of Capricorn. I know that a lot of old souls come.
A lot of old souls, yeah.
Don't worry if your child is being born now with so much Capricorn energy. Someone called them a psychic. She called them old souls from very ancient times. Like she said, they're bringing knowledge from Atlantis and stuff like that. Like so, and there is a lot of junk as well.
Yeah.
Buried. It's Capricorn is complexes, inadequacies. As well, but it has its positive side as well.
It does, yeah. Especially with K2 and Jupiter being together, they will definitely have some knowledge from the past. Most definitely, these kids, these babies that are being born now. They are definitely old souls, and they will definitely be educating the world on things that happened back in the day, or maybe being drawn to history
Yes,
It'll be
yes.
very
We need
haunted
the true
history.
history.
Hmm. Yeah.
But for Capricorn is the strongest, basically. They will
Hmm.
be feeling it the most. A lot of new
Yeah.
beginnings because two new cycles are starting in their sign. The
Hmm.
cycle of Pluto, Saturn, of Jupiter, Pluto. So they are the ones that are called to do the biggest changes this year. And
Yeah.
I think Jupiter Pluto will empower them as well and will relieve some of the pressure that Saturn has been. Yeah, Saturn is their planet, but Jupiter will bring a bit more ease to them and relief from
Hmm.
all the onslaught they've been going through for the
Right. Right.
years, and more maybe optimism about the future and feeling like, yes, I can do it, and more confidence
Hmm.
that it can come. And of course, there will be tangible results because Capricorn is a tangible
Yeah.
sign. But yeah, it's the final push for you guys. You're gonna
Yeah.
push that baby out. The new
Yeah.
beginning of your life.
Yes, most definitely. And definitely a lot of knowledge and awareness to their cells, their body, maybe mistakes that they have been making and they don't realize it, especially with K2 there now. Depending on the degree of the ascendant, maybe they'll start to realize some of the mistakes that they have been making forever, for a long time. And Jupiter will bring awareness to that knowledge about the self, or even genetics. Maybe you'll start to learn about your roots like that. Um, and I've experienced that when Jupiter came into my sign. I learned about the percentages of my ethnic background. So it could be something like that for Capricorn rising people.
Who you
So
are, yeah,
yeah,
getting knowledge about who you are and being empowered. Jupiter Pluto is empowering at the
yeah,
end,
feeling
finding really
something about
deep
yourself.
sources in yourself. Um,
Yeah, or something finding about your genetics, your parents, because first house is also grandparents,
uh,
maternal grandfather, and mm, father's mother, so paternal grandmother.
yeah.
So it may, even if nothing happens to you directly, it could be something related to that. So yeah, that's why I find
Well,
about
that
this.
will kind of suck. You have Jupiter in your sign and you've been waiting for it for 12 years, and then you find out your maternal grandfather was at war.
Yeah. Right.
Great. But it
Yeah.
carries some blessing in it. Whatever it happens, it carries some blessing because of the Jupiter influence.
Yep. Yeah. So you'll be
Aquarius.
Aquarius. So this will be related to 12th house things, your spirituality, your spiritual beliefs. Um, hmm. 12th house represent. This 12th house is one of those houses where I get stuck on because it represents so many things, and it's very abstract and it's complicated. It's hard to describe, because it represents intangible things or invisible things, the subconscious mind, because it's behind the first house, it's things that's behind you. So maybe you'll be forced to be more secluded, or blessings regarding anything related to foreign experiences, foreign places, stuff like that. So maybe you'll be forced to study and research behind the scenes,
Yes.
and
Work behind the scenes, prepare for something.
yeah, preparing for something, um, working in seclusion, being by yourself. There could be limitations with, let's see, bed pleasures, stuff like that. Or maybe there will be some consistency with spiritual practices, like if you meditate every single day or do yoga every single day or something like that.
You can
And
have
maybe,
some breakthrough with
yeah,
Jupiter.
some breakthrough with Jupiter being there. So Jupiter is going to expand ancient, maybe technical ways of your spiritual belief systems, or even something related to um, like maybe not your mental health, but anything related to your subconscious mind, or something related to dreams or something like that.
I think you can find with Jupiter bringing knowledge now and Pluto deep resources and Saturn blockages in the past, some Aquarius, especially Aquarius rising, might get to the root of self-sabotaging behaviors, why they're keeping themselves up, or why they're procrastinating, or why they're having like addictions or something. And especially, and as you said, it's going to be really back in the past. They might have past life regression, that they realize something, or working with a counselor or therapist, that they unearth something that might liberate them from
Yeah,
as well.
something that would liberate them. Or 12th house could also represent thieves and thievery or hidden enemies, stuff like that. Being more knowledgeable about, hidden
Your
enemies.
hidden
People,
enemies.
yeah, people that are not your friends, that you may have thought you were friends or something like that, some underhanded behavior going on. And Jupiter will bring awareness to that. And it could have been something that has been going on for a long period of time and you've been ignoring it or not aware of it. So it could be something like that, especially with Pluto there. It could be something really, really twisted and dark. And Jupiter will bring awareness to it, like, wow, you have been treating me this way behind my back all this time, that kind of thing. Or even somebody stalking you, you don't even realize it, or something like that, because Pluto represents being obsessive and vindictive and stuff like that. Like,
I've been having that happening. I'm Aquarius rising, so
yeah, like
in the last
people.
2.5 years it started, and I've never had an enemy, hidden enemy. And
Mm-hmm,
someone who keeps changing accounts, but I always recognize their style because I know them.
mm-hmm,
And someone who keeps doing so much damage with lies and whatever it is, and it's exhausting. And threats,
mm-hmm,
logical threats, threats with government, with
mm-hmm.
any type of threats you can find. And it is some you never know, like some snake can strike behind you because you're not sure who this person is, and you kind of
Mm-hmm.
know, but they keep changing, and it is. But I hope Jupiter now can kind of help with this.
Yeah, bring some blessing behind that, or because Jupiter is, represents the teachers and gurus and good people, moral, ethical people. So hopefully, somebody who has ethics will bring awareness to um, some repetitive, stagnant stalker behavior or obsessive behavior, jealous behavior towards this Aquarius individual that's been going on repeatedly over and over. And you've been working really hard to get that under control, and Jupiter can actually help that some kind of way, or maybe Jupiter could bring some blessing behind there. Maybe you find that person and then you sue them and then you get wealth. Some hidden wealth. Jupiter, Pluto aspect.
Or on more psychological level, you can discover hidden psychological resources from past lifetimes or such that you've forgotten, because it is psychological now. So
Yeah.
okay, Pisces.
Pisces, last but not least. So this could be related to friendships, network circles, your earnings and gains. And again, this is like the kind of friendship that's your happy hour buddies, that kind of friendship level. People that you associate with, the people that you find commonalities with. So with Saturn being there, there could have been limitations on friendships, maybe a death of a friendship. There's been a couple Pisces people who've experienced that, who lost a best friend, something like that. And Jupiter being there could bring some blessings there, some generosity there when it comes to your financial gains, and maybe there has been, you know, friendships that were not so great with Pluto being there, like maybe friends who are not that good to you, maybe people who are jealous of you or being manipulative. And Jupiter can bring like good friends, more ethical friends. And with Jupiter conjuncting Saturn, maybe it's time to start hanging out with mature people too. Maybe that person who's like maybe 20 years older than you would actually be a better friend to you than maybe somebody your age or something like that, or youthful friends. Maybe being more drawn to friends with age and maturity and wisdom. So being more drawn to people like that, someone with a lot of wisdom, a lot of maturity. Your grandmother could be your best friend, or your parent, something like that.
Pisces.
Right, you know, and there's nothing wrong with it, you know?
No, of course not.
Yeah, so it's just associate yourself with people like that.
But since the 11th house is also house of gains, just like second is of money, do you think maybe for Sagittarius and Pisces, with Pluto conjunct Jupiter, for some of them, it needs to be first in your horoscope. But if you have it there, it might bring wealth more than just
Yeah,
not just like, oh, I'm having $100 more per month. I'm talking something more considerable.
it definitely can bring more wealth, especially with the Jupiter. Just by knowing what Jupiter and Pluto do by themselves in any house, if it's in the house of gains, then there could be support with finance related things. Because the 11th house is after the 10th house. So it's like the reason why 11th house is gains is because it's earnings from your career and your status.
It's the second from the 10th. The 10th is your career.
Yeah, second from the 10th. Just like the reason why 8th house is taxes is because it's 11th. No. 11th. I think it's the 11th from the 10th.
10th, the
Yeah,
gain of the government.
yeah, gains of the government. That's why I can relate it to debt and you're paying those taxes off.
Mm.
So, but
Wow.
the 11th house is support system from the 10th house. So that's why it's earnings and gains in the first place.
Thank you so much, Darren. I shouldn't have asked you to do the 12 signs because now people would want you to do every week a week for the 12 signs. You turn out to be really good at that.
Oh, thank you.
Knowledgeable. I don't think you even prepared for the 12 signs. I put you
I
on
didn't.
you
I
prepared
didn't.
for the Jupiter Pluto, but wow, you're very good.
Thank you.
About doing that like on a monthly basis.
Yeah. I definitely want to do that. Yeah. I am working on something. You know, I'm working on a course right now, you know. I didn't want to advertise it yet because it's not finished or anything like that. But once I'm finished, I do want to make another video with you and advertise it. So,
Darren is such an exceptional teacher. I mean, his south node is on the star of astrology. So
yeah.
past lifetime he was an astrologer. If he picked it up so quickly, just within a few years, I mean, it took me 7 years before planets and astrology started making any sense. Within 2 years, he was even ahead of where I am at 12 years later. Please thank you so much for joining me, Darren. If you want a reading with Darren, it's 40% off till the 1st of January. He will send you a recording of videos, or sometimes if you want, he might accommodate you for a live one. The main trends of 2020 uses ancient techniques, uses perfections, and a lot of different ancient techniques, not just transit. So he's exceptional astrology. It's such a rare opportunity to get 30-minute recording, 40% off till the 1st of January only. Thank you so much, Darren. Have a blissful 2020. You put an amazing start to the marathon. I couldn't have asked for a better and more profound one. And I'm wishing all of you the depth of resources and rewards that Jupiter Pluto can give you, that to find really big depth of wealth within yourself and outside yourself. I'm wishing you the most positive manifestation of that conjunction. And bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Darren.
Bye.